So, what's your name, and where are we?
My name is Chris Tavner, and we are leaving Stamford in Lincolnshire.
Okay, fantastic. And how would you describe yourself as an artist?
Stand-up comedian, improviser, bit of writing.
Okay, fantastic. So, stand-up comedian and improviser and writer. And would you say that those are all, like improviser and writer, would you say that those are comedy writing and comedy improvisation?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of writing, I've done like article writing and stuff like that. So it's kind of like similar-ish wheelhouse. But yeah, a bit of sketch writing and stuff like that, things that are connected to comedy.
Yeah, fab. And what is it that draws you towards that style of writing, comedy improvisation, rather than more straight, serious dramatic writing or dramatic acting or improvisation?
I can see myself in the future, writing-wise, actually going and looking at more dramatic forms, to be honest. Do that a little bit now anyway. But in terms of comedy, just always loved comedy, whether it's like stand-up, sketch, what have you. And I don't know, it's just, I know I found in my life, and it's like before I did stand-up, like the thing that I'd be drawn to the most, if I had like a choice for things to like watch or what have you, would be comedy, because there's nothing better than laughing. It's a great feeling, and getting other people to laugh at stuff you produced. It's, and in terms of having a reaction, you know what I mean? In terms of like drama, how far can you go? Like, unless you hear like an audible gasp, it's only afterwards you like speak to people like, did you enjoy that? Like, yeah, it was great. You can't know for sure. Whereas like comedy, you absolutely know whether you've succeeded or not, because it is about laughter. You actually get that audible reaction to what you're doing.
So do you think that you're a comic performer or comic writer because of a lack of like assurance that you need that validation off of an audience?
No, not. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like the validation, because obviously you do need a validation to show that you've done well. If you mean, is it kind of filling a gap that I had? I'm not so sure, to be honest.
So what is it that makes you want to go and make a whole room of people laugh?
That's an interesting question. I don't. In terms of like what, because I've been doing it for a number of years, so it is like that drive in terms of what got me into it originally. Yeah, just like the idea of doing. I enjoyed comedy, and it was something that I wanted to do. I mean, yeah, I suppose I like the idea of performing something that would get huge laughter and a big round of applause, and I maybe saw people on television and film and stuff like that thinking like, wow, imagine being able to do that. So I suppose those are like maybe like the fantasy elements to it in that sense.
So do you think that there is a certain otherworldliness to comedy performance rather than it being based in reality for you? Because you mentioned fantasy.
No, I wouldn't say otherworldly. I don't know, in my mind I would create like somehow like I'm creating a huge level of fantasy within what I'm creating to elicit that laughter, or in actual fact it's just creating a way of looking of explaining something of something that's been in your life, or an observation, or whatever it is. It's just a way of putting it to an audience that will elicit that laughter. There's a craft there that's certainly enjoyable, but I suppose there is fantasy in it, isn't there? That any sort of comedian, even people who talk about stories that have been true to them, it's incredibly rare that it is word for word a retelling. But then again, you could say that of anything. The the biopic of Elton John, clearly, everyone understands it's a fiction based on a reality, and that it won't all be exactly what happened. So I suppose any kind of I suppose it's a retelling, isn't it? It's a retelling of reality. So it's I'm not really sure how best to put it. But you start with reality, and it's then trying to communicate that to an audience, like in film, like in literature. And I suppose you just got to find the ways and the devices to do that successfully, which will take a truth and then turn it into something slightly new. But it isn't starting with a fantasy; it is starting with the truth.
So how important do you think the truth and authenticity is to successful comedic performance, given that it is a distorted version of reality?
Well, there's so many different forms, isn't there? You can get surreal or absurd or all kinds of different kinds of comedy that can be very successful. I mean, successful comedy is, are the audience reacting to it in the way that was intended? Are they laughing? Obviously there's emotional reactions beyond pure laughter in comedy as well. You can bring pathos, tragedy, whatever, into an act as well.
When a comedic act has parts that aren't working or aren't eliciting the reaction you want, or a comedic act has injected pathos or sad points into a comedic act, is it still comedy at that point, or does it take the form of something else, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's an interesting point about what can you do to it. I suppose the point is, if the primary objective of the show is what you would perceive as comedy, then it's comedy. There's plenty. Like the Edinburgh model there's so many shows that use pathos or tragedy or whatever else as like points. And some of the most successful comedy shows, there can be comedy shows that are brilliant, that people come out of it having cried, which is not usually what you expect from a comedy gig. So it can be, but the driving point of it has got to be comedy. I think sometimes people can do a show thinking it's comedy, and it could be, say, about a tragic thing, and actually they're not successful in turning it into a comedy thing, and even though it's true and it can be interesting, it might not actually really be comedy, and it's maybe this should have been pitched as something else. Especially someone say like the Edinburgh Festival, which would be completely legitimate to do a storytelling show or a piece of theatre, might have been more appropriate. But I don't know, for the most part, if people are attempting to do a comedy show, then yeah, it doesn't all have to be comedy. As long as that's the point or the reason for it, then it makes sense. So,
do you think that, in labelling something comedy or labelling something a storytelling show, how does that change the dynamic or the adding of pathos to a show that's labelled as storytelling versus one that's labelled as comedy?
Say is that it's like a long thing to say is that if you're aiming for comedy, it's just a point that there is going to be these laughter points throughout the show. It's almost like that is the primary reason you are there, is to make people laugh. Obviously a storytelling show can be comedic, but you're going in there, you're not sort of think, well, I've not laughed for a couple of minutes. It's not it's not like it's a big thing. Whereas with the dramatic devices that people can use in, say, long form stand-up, there can be whole sections that aren't funny, but it's for a particular reason that you're doing it. It's not just going to be within the first 10 minutes and actually you just haven't managed to make them laugh in 5 minutes, then probably just not being successful in comedy. But yeah, it's a storytelling show. Yeah, I suppose it's an interesting thing, how you're going to try and how you're pitching it, what the audience expectation is, what your expectation is as a performer.
And do you think that expectation, in terms of its intent, comes from the artist, or do you think that expectation for how it's going to come across comes from the audience?
I mean, the artist has a sort of duty in terms of like how you're packaging what you are producing. As I said, it's perfectly legitimate to come up with the saddest show on earth about some tragic thing that's going to make everybody cry, and it's not intended for comedy. Then it's fine, as long as you're like, as long as it's not, Dr. Chuckles' funny hour, and it's all about, I don't know, being abused for like an hour, then you're going to be like, oh, that wasn't what we were expecting, unless it was like presented on some sort of massively ironic level. So yeah, as long as you've like put some thought into what you're producing and why, as in how you're selling the concept of the show, then hopefully you've done that successfully enough that the audience have some idea of what they're coming in to see.
And how important do you think it is to meet that audience's expectation, or can you subvert it? Is it more important to subvert expectations, or is it better to meet them?
I don't think there's any value judgment that can be put on that in terms of whether you subvert or not an audience's expectations. In terms of this discussion about the different forms, my mind is kind of like going latently towards, say, an Edinburgh Festival show, an hour-long solo show. And obviously that isn't necessarily the case when you're saying stand-up. I don't know, if something like what we did tonight was a normal stand-up show, me emceeing 4 acts. Like perfectly, all people know is they're coming in to see stand-up. They know exactly what form it is, but they have some concepts in their head of what stand-up comedy is, and I think those were met to different levels of success. But everyone who performed tonight was definitely a stand-up comedian. What you did was very different, was like normal form, but nobody's like going like that wasn't stand-up. It was stand-up. It's just not what they were expecting, and it elicited the reaction of laughter that they would have. That in that sense they would have expected. So I would say I don't think there's a value judgment one way or the other. That is down to the artist. You can choose to do it, or you can stick within normal forms and still be incredibly successful in whatever that means to you as an artist.
And what does success mean to you as an artist?
That's a good question, isn't it? What does it mean to me? Success is being able to express what I choose to express in a successful way for the audience. And as far as I'm concerned, that is to make them laugh. So I'm doing my solo show, and yes, there are bits there for narrative structure that aren't just laughter, laughter, laughter. There are serious points there where I'm talking, say, in my show about not being very good as a political activist. And I introduce bits where I talk about failing, and I bring it back round to the concept towards the end, unsurprisingly. But it's still, can I talk about what I choose to talk about and make an audience laugh? And
why is it important to make them laugh versus make them feel any other type of emotion?
Because it's comedy. I'm quite happy that within comedy there are other emotions, and that can be great. As I said, I have seen brilliant shows that have been stand-up comedy and have definitely been comedy that you'll end up crying at, and that's perfectly legitimate, absolutely legitimate. I don't think it necessarily makes it more legitimate, despite what maybe some people think with an Edinburgh show, or this weird thing that we do have of solo shows in this country where the American markets don't understand what we do. That you can have people who aren't like bona fide circuit headliners doing hour-long shows, and they have like a narrative structure where they're just like, no, you just do your set for an hour and just be good at your set. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily like completely like more important, but for me, if it's stand-up comedy, the primary response through the show, if not the purpose completely of the show at the end in terms of what you walk away with, the primary thing through that show is to make people laugh. Otherwise, I don't think it is comedy, it is some other form, which doesn't mean it's not legitimate, but, you know, just as long as like somebody's honest with what they are actually producing.
So is that, so if your definition of success is to do with provoking an audience reaction, whether that be, you know, laughter or whatever, how much of your success are you laying down to an audience's sense of taste, given that it's such a subjective thing?
Yeah, absolutely. You understand like what different audiences are. So, for instance, talking about the Edinburgh thing, my solo show about being a political activist, I wouldn't have done huge reams of that material in the show tonight, because that wouldn't have chimed with the experiences of the audience. I've got this, not to say that none of it could work, and I did do political material tonight, and indeed I do political material in my set anyway, but I also do other material that I'm happy to talk about my life that I know is also more relatable to a general audience. However, if you're doing something like Edinburgh and I'm giving people the flyer that says this show is called Shit Socialist, they have some idea, a better idea of what they're coming to. So I will be able to do something that's a bit more specific within that boundary. So it's not, so in terms of how it's judged by an audience, you know, part of it is down to what audience I choose and for what reasons. So just because I do something in a solo show that I've packaged in a very particular way, in a solo show, Edinburgh or elsewhere, Brighton Fringe, or if I'm touring it, and that's at a level of success, is not the same thing as if I'm doing like a club set somewhere. I will sort of think, right, what the expectation, what the understanding of this audience here, and try and see where they are and go to them to communicate with them. If I try and do stuff that has worked, say, in the context of the show, and is unsuccessful there, well, that is probably down to me making a poor choice of material as a performer. It's not necessarily that it is bad material, but it wasn't right for that context. And I will take that into account with the different audiences I played to.
And so you mentioned that you do political material, and comedy's always historically been a platform to make political stances or commentary, famously like jesters in the royal courtyard. How effective do you think that comedy is at making social comment today versus historically? Do you think it's more effective or less effective now?
More or less effective? I don't know if it's more effective, because the kind of like, it doesn't feel like the kind of modes of stand-up have intrinsical comedy, because that includes all forms of television, media, online, etc. I don't know if the modes have really changed in like a number of decades, fundamentally, you know, compared to like the 60s, or, you know, with like satire and stand-up wasn't really the same as it is now. So I think it can still be effective. I think it's like John Cleese always says, like, you know, like comedy has never changed the world. And I think he's right, you know, no stand-up comedy has. But in terms of political activism, I think it can almost like help sharpen the arguments for people, because I think a good joke, because the best like political thinkers and speakers are often can be very funny, because they'll sum something up in such a way that it just makes you laugh, because it's like, oh yeah, that is ridiculous. So I think comedy, in terms of a political level, I think it can potentially help arm people. It can help explain things in a very succinct way to help carry those arguments potentially, but in itself is not a driver for political change, or, anything like that. I suppose we're also in a time that, quite understandably, most political comedy, say if it's on television, does have a sort of duty, maybe a legal level of duty to some sort of balance, isn't it? So if you're on a satirical TV show, you've got to kind of take the piss out of all the different directions. So if you can do a joke about Corbyn, you will do. If you can do a joke about Theresa May, you will do. You'll find the different jokes. They're almost like apolitical people. That is not the direction that I am. I'm very particular political position. So in that sense, it maybe takes the teeth away in that you can just like take the piss out of everyone. And if it's a zeitgeist to kind of go, right, it's in the media, everyone's taking the piss out of Corbyn, then the main thing you do on, say, like Last Leg or whatever, is like attack Corbyn. Nobody's really going to stand up and kind of go, well, actually, is there another way of looking at this? They'll kind of go sometimes with the easier route, so perhaps that could be a problem.
So what do you think is the best way to approach politics with comedy?
To approach politics with comedy?
Or as a comedic writer and performer?
I must admit, there is a certain attractiveness of talking about politics, if for no other reason than it's a bit harder. It's a trickier thing to talk about. I do material about getting married. That's not a difficult thing to do. I'm happy with material. I'm not like it's a sellout thing. It's unique to me, fine. But it's also like I know that'll work because everyone knows the concept of marriage. You don't have to be married to find it funny. Anyone can find that funny. The stuff about moving house, fine. These are all easily accessible topics. Whereas, say, doing stuff about, like I did tonight, talking about the Tory leadership, there's something about finding that angle in a normal stand-up comedy audience that I can have a position on it, an observation that works well enough that an audience that are not there for anything political will still find it funny. They're not being preached at or whatever. I've managed to find that comedy angle on what is potentially a slightly trickier ground to communicate to an audience. So there is something satisfying in that, but at the same time I'm not going to fool myself that even if I come up with like brilliant political arguments sewn up as jokes that make people laugh their head off, that I'm going to fundamentally change hearts and minds around the country, leaving behind me a wake of newly discovered revolutionary socialists. So in terms of the impact, so I'm attracted to do it, but purely on the level of being a performer. As I said, stand-up comedy won't change the world, so don't maybe like people like to overthink it. Do it because like you want to do it. In terms of what you can do with it, I don't know. I mean, like in a sense, you can like almost like help G up the troops. There are reasons to do like gigs that have got like a lefty audience or trade unionists or activists or whatever, and sometimes it's just nice to bring these people together and have something to enjoy, just have something, a common ground and to link to. That's why it's great doing like Love Music Hate Racism. I'm involved in that, and like so a lot of the times you're doing them, you do have like the same audience, and of course you want to go out and get a general audience and pull people in who might not, to try and sway people who need swaying. But sometimes it is also nice to put on like a big drum and bass line, have a load of people there, and all of you kind of go, yeah, we fucking hate Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage, and we're kind of together and we're celebrating what unites us. It can be a positive thing as well. So I'd say like don't overthink in terms of what you can do with your comedy as if like this is this amazing weapon. It's like do what you want to do for your own self-expression, whatever that might be. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with like trying to like build that kind of like audience out there and people, to just come together and enjoy having a laugh together. It's a nice thing to bring people together.
So this will probably be my final question. So what is it that you want to get out of comedy?
Money! What do I want to get out of comedy? Well, actually, money's not like it's a strange thing in terms of like with it, because like you do need like a sort of like financial recompense, whatever you're doing, no matter if you're left, right, or whatever. You need to live. So frankly, yes, it would be nice to have an income that I could live doing creative things, not just stand up, other things as well. and to kind of almost like have the freedom that could provide. That would be good, and also to like develop my own shows. I don't think I'd ever like to not be on the circuit, which is going way beyond a fancy of where I am at the moment. Some people are like, I just want to have my own audience. I kind of like being able to sort of play audiences that are just what's put in front of you and fucking deal with that. I love the challenge of that, and I don't think I'd ever want to work away from that, even if the opportunity arose. But also to kind of like just keep developing and just get better and get stronger, knowing that it is a journey that never ends, and that is the beauty of it. Always write and perform and improve, repeat.
Fantastic. Cheers for that.
Alright.